Let's get started with the connecting to how to connect to different data sources. So there are different source systems or systems are available to store our data. If you take a look at different enterprises, right? They use variety of source systems. There are some customers or some companies they use database to store the data. And there are some customers, what they do is they pull the data using the web connector from other website. Okay. And there are cases, but most of the customers, they use the RDBMS software in the case of analytics, data analytics. Okay. They store the data in data warehouse. That data warehouse, they create it and they create it as part of your RDBMS software like SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, or DB2. So these are the RDBMS. Different flavors of RDBMS are available. The SQL Server is a Microsoft product, and Power BI is also Microsoft product. Most of the Power BI customers, sorry, Power BI customers or Microsoft customers, they obviously prefer SQL Server because Power BI and SQL Server, since both of them are Microsoft related products, there will be a good compatibility with these two softwares. Okay, and these are the SQL Server RDBM is the one widely used by most of the uh, customers. Okay, the enterprises or some companies. Okay, and there are customers still they use Oracle Server, and some customers they use SAP, and those customers use SAP. They store the data in the SAP and thing, and they use the SAP and connector, which is available in Power BI Desktop to connect to that. And REST API. Apart from this, you can use the REST API to send a request, and whatever the request that you send to the REST API, that will be processed, and the REST API will send the processed request back to you, back to our Power BI Desktop. Using REST API also, we can pull the data, send the request, and get the request back using the API. And next on the web pages, like I said, if you want to grab the data from websites, for example, you want to grab the prices of various products within the similar category. You want to do some kind of price comparison. In that kind of situations, you can use the web connector to pull the data from the different websites, and then you can process the data and you can do your analysis. Okay, once the data is available, okay, in your Power BI Desktop, you can do the process everything. And the next one is the cloud database. Database is also Microsoft product. Okay, and we will see how we can, what is database and how we can connect to that, all the things we can look at it. Next one is PBIDS, Power BI dataset files. And likewise, various files or various source systems, you should be knowing how to connect it. Okay, and these are just the uh, tip of the iceberg. Okay, there are many connectors are available, but if you know this much, that is enough. Okay, that is more than sufficient. Okay, and you can manage. But end of the day, Hadoop system, how to connect to Hadoop system, everything connector is there. If you use the connector, you can connect. But these are the basic things, you should be aware of it. But again, these are the advanced thing also, the PBADS and REST API, and how to pull the data, how to grab the data using web connector. Okay, so all these things are bit advanced one, including database, everything. Okay, and just because we are looking at how to connect to database, how to pull the data, and how to connect to the REST API, it doesn't mean all the enterprises they are supposed to use database or would the REST API. Okay, but majority of them they still store the data in SQL Server. If you know SQL Server very well, that is enough. Most of the employees they look for the associates to be good in the SQL queries and so on. Okay, and now you might be wondering, so what are these source systems? So why do I need to learn how to pull the data from various source system? So this is the conceptual architecture. Okay, this is the data warehouse architecture. So this is where you pull, this is what your source system that like we have seen it in the previous slide. Let's say you have the comma separate value files and the data is available in Salesforce, a CRM database, right? That is available on cloud or WMS database. This is your Microsoft SQL Server database, OLTP database. This is where, let's say you own a e-commerce website, all the orders raised by the customer, that one will get stored in the database. Okay, this is a SQL server. This is a, this is an Oracle server, and this is DB2. Likewise, different source system, the data are available. And what we do is we have some data warehouse. So these are the source system data. These data are more volatile. Okay, the data are not stored on a long-term basis. Every once in a year or every once in 6 months, they archive the data. Okay, and every once in a year or so, right? Every 6 months, in every once in 6 months or 1 year, they archive the data. And then, for example, next year, when you see this database, you will find the 2024 data only will be there. 2023 data, they would have archived. In the sense, they will not throw it. They will take a backup and keep it in some tape, okay? And only when it is necessary, they will use that tape and restore the data and they do the analysis. But they make sure that in the source system, they don't keep huge volume of the data because in the case of e-commerce system, multiple users are concurrently accessing or raising the orders via your e-commerce website across the globe. Okay, in that case, multiple users parallelly, simultaneously, they are accessing the database. So in that case, if you keep the historical data, billions and billions of record, it will literally slow down their performance. If they want to see the price for a specific product, it will take longer time if you have huge volume of data. Simple example, if I ask you to read 4 persons' name in a paper where you have 10 persons' name, you can read it fast. If I give you a big paper wherein I put 1,000 customers' name in it, and if I ask you to find out the 4 persons' name, it will take longer time, isn't it? The same principle or the same analogy is applicable here also. Hence, they don't keep huge volume of the data. They try to minimize the data in the source system. Okay. The next one is the staging area. What we do is, okay, if I don't store the historical data every once in 6 months, every once in a year, if I archive the data, which means if I back up the data and if I don't have the previous year, prior to previous year data here, how can I do year-on-year sales performance kind of analysis? So that is when you have something called data warehouse comes into picture. Here they store the historical data. So let's assume that the data warehouse, in this case, they have 5 years data in it. Okay, they store 5 years data in it. Each and every day, whatever the transaction happens, or for the 5 years, they maintain it here. So that if you want to compare current quarter of this year with the previous year current quarter, you can do the analysis. Okay, you need to have the historical data to perform like for like analysis. Like I said, current quarter of this year, if you want to compare it with the previous year's current quarter, you need to have the data, right? Historical data. So here they keep the historical data. So there are 2 parts here. This is meant for the transactional purpose. The customers, they are, raise the product, they raise the orders and everything here. So every minute or second transaction will keep happen. But here, this is meant for analytics purpose. This is for companies management, or managers, right from the, right from the clerical person to the topmost person, CEO, right? They will hit this database indirectly using your Power BI reporting tool or so to understand where they stand, where the business stand. Okay, so where they are spending more and where they need to cut down the cost and where they need to focus in terms of boosting their revenue and how to boost the profitability, right? What price we can sell it, all kind of analytics they do it in the data warehouse. Data warehouse is meant for analytics. It is also called as a OLAP, online analytical processing. Okay, this is called OLTP. I'm not going to talk too much. You will get confused. So OLTP is something like your source system. It's something like, your vegetable market, veg market, right? Veg market. Okay. And here all the data are available, different data are available to create a report which covers the holistic performance about your business. It requires, all these different vegetables, for instance, different data. But having, data from different source system alone not sufficient. They need to pre-process the data in case of any duplicate records, missing records. And so, they need to merge multiple files, append the files, everything they need to do it. They do all kind of data transformation here. This is called your data transformation in this area. They do the data transformation here in this area, staging area. And once they pre-process the data and then they load it into a data warehouse. The data warehouse, they will keep loading the data, okay? The data warehouse will get accumulated with the day-to-day data. Most likely, right, they store 5 years. In the case of bank and all, they store 25 years and 30 years and all, okay? In the case of e-commerce, they don't want to compare beyond 5 years because the trend is changing every year, right? So in that case, 5 years data alone, most of the company, again, depends on the retail companies, okay? So in general, if they store it 5 years or 5 to 8 years, that is sufficient for them, okay? And once they store the historical, they can do the analytics. But here in the data warehouse, before they move the data from your source to data warehouse, there is a staging area. So this is kind of your kitchen. This is where you bring in all the vegetables. You can do the data cleaning, everything. You cut the data, you reshape the data, cut the data, and then you slice the data and reshape the data. And then what you do is you load the data here. This is called your load. Once you complete in the staging area, the data pre-processing, once you pre-process the data, next step is it is ready for cooking. Okay, the data will get loaded here. So this is called load. This is called data transformation T. Remember the T, and this is for extraction, extracting the data here. So between these two layers, the extraction is happening. So this is called ETL. ETL. Okay, up to this, the ETL is done. Okay, the ETL term is applied here. E stands for extracting the data. First, you need to extract all the data from different sources, the relevant data for your analysis. Okay, you need to pull all the data, relevant data from various sources and put it in your staging area. That is for extraction. Next one is once the source system data available here, you do the data transformation only in the staging area. Once you pre-process the data, and then you load the data here. So now the question is, why do we need to have a staging area? Can't I remove this layer? And while extracting the data itself, if I do the data transformation, and then if I load the data directly, won't it work? It will work, but this is not the best practice. Because while already these databases were accessed simultaneously by 1 million customers also every 1 hour, right? So already these databases are busy with catering to the application users. On top, while extracting the data, if you do the data transfer, what will happen? It will literally slow down your source system database performance. So we don't want the source system should get overburdened while extracting the data. Simply extract the data, read the data, and then load it here. Maybe there are a few tables. There are a few tables that are identical to the source system tables. Let it be there. Once we have the replica of these tables here, you do the transformation here, and then you load it here. Don't do it here, everything, okay? To simply read the data, extract the data. Load. So now you understood what is ETL. E stands for extraction, T stands for transformation, L stands for loading. Once you load the data, historical data here, right? This one is kind of a processed data, pre-processed data. Now using your Power BI or Tableau or ClickSense or use any reporting tool, to access your data warehouse and pull the data, and then you can plot the charts or visuals, whatever you wanted. Now you understood the big picture. First, understand the big picture, and then if you proceed further, you will be able to understand. Understanding the big picture is key to any business or any, even our personal life. We need to understand what is the big picture, right? If you, before you do any, or before you take any action, you need to understand it. So extraction between this layer, the OLTP to staging area, we are extracting the data. This is the task we do it. And the transformation, the data cleaning, everything we do it here. Now the question is, we are extracting the data here, but since we are doing the data transformation, don't you think this area, the staging area, will be overburdened? Obviously, this one will be overburdened, because you are combining multiple tables, and then you are doing left join, right join, everything on top. You are doing complex data transformation, aggregation, everything. Obviously, there will be a CPU intensive job will be there. But here also in staging area, we keep the data only for few months or few a few months. Okay, for example, in the staging area, once you clean the data and you load it here, then what is the purpose of having the previous data, right? Once you clean the data or pre-process data and load it in data warehouse, this data is no longer required. Right. For example, you have vegetable, everything, and you cut the cut it in the required shape, and then you mix it with appropriate ratio of the recipes, and then you push it to your push it for your cooking, right? So in this case, the wastages, whatever is there, you don't need it, right? So whatever already you pre-processed one, that is enough. The other things are not required. You can remove it so that you can save space. Every once in, so usually what they do is they keep it 3 months or maximum 6 months data only in the staging area. Whereas in the data warehouse, they store 5 years. There are some cases 20 years, 25 years data, they keep it here because they want to do year on year analysis and so on. Okay. So remember that between the staging stores area, this is your source system, and the staging area, we are simply extract that and load it here. The staging area, what we do is, once we extract the data from the source system, we do the data transformation, everything. Once the data is pre-processed, transformation nothing but pre-processing the data. Once you pre-process the data, the next step is to load the data into data warehouse. The next step is, okay, your data warehouse is already having the pre-processed, maybe aggregated data in it. Then if you use any reporting tool and if you access the data warehouse, you can generate whatever the report that you wanted. Okay. Now we are going to look at the source system, various source systems, how we are going to access various source system, how we can pull the data from heterogeneous files, which include flat files, folders, databases like SQL Server, Access, Oracle, MySQL, and Power Platform like data flows, database, and REST API. All these things we'll take a look at it. Okay. And to start with, let's start with a simple example like we have seen in the last session, how we can load the CSV file. All of you have understood, right? And here, this is your Power BI desktop. Once you launch your, you go to your start button or press window key from your laptop and then type Power BI desktop. After you install this one, you type it here, and then you can see the icon here. If you click on it, it will get open something like this. This is what your Power BI desktop. Okay. And those of you who have already. All right. So now what we'll do is, so when you launch your Power BI desktop, it will get launched with the welcome screen. You need to click on cross in the welcome screen. It will get closed, and then you can see this one. This is what your Power BI desktop. Whatever you see it is the white color one. This is your report canvas. Okay, and then here, this icon is meant for report canvas. This is for your data view. This is called your model view. At this moment, let us ignore the model view. Data view, you should be knowing it. Once you load the data into the Power BI desktop, on the top, right under the data pane, you can see the tables or the files, whatever you loaded here. And along with the table name, you can see the column names and the data types also. Okay. But you cannot see the data here itself. If you want to see the data for the file which you loaded, you need to switch to the data view. Once you switch to the data view, we can see the data, whatever you loaded it here. Okay. Click on the get data. I'm going to select text to CSV, and here I'm going to do the sales w04.csv. Okay, better sales underscore w. I'm sure it is there here. Better let me type the file here. Click on open, it will get open. Now it is establishing a connection with your CSV file. It has opened up the navigation window. So, it is nothing but the preview window. Okay. So here it will show the sample data here. It is not showing the entire file data, only the sample data. With that, you can decide whether you are loading the correct file or not. Okay, I'm fine with this, but I can take a cursory look at it. By looking at it, I can see that there are some negative margins are there, and there are some NES. Or NES stands for not available in the sense, in the sales column, we have some blank values are there. I'm going to hit the load button. Okay, when I hit the load button for this file, sales w04.csv, will get loaded with the entire data, right? So this entire file data will get loaded into your Power BI desktop. That's what I mean to say here. Okay, and it's a comma delimiter. CSV stands for comma delimiter because each column and its values are separated by comma. Only then you can understand this, whether this value belong to this column or this column, or whether this value belong to quantity or this value belong to sales, right? Each column is separated by comma. So here you can see three options. When you click on cancel, it is a common sense. This data file will not get loaded. And if you click on the transform data, it will open up your Power Query Editor. That is what I call it as a kitchen. We do data pre-processing, everything in the Power Query Editor. Okay. And now what I do is I don't want directly to go to the Power Query Editor to do the data transformation. All I need to do is load the data. First, let us load the data and then we do the data cleaning, everything. $25,004 records got loaded. Very good. It's pretty simple. Loading a CSV file is pretty simple. Look here on the right side. You can see that the file name says w04.csv file. And next to that, you can see table icon. And just before that, you can see this icon. If you click on it, it will get expanded and you can see all the columns that belongs to this file. Henceforth, I'm not going to call this a file because the file, along with the file, you can see the table icon. So what does it mean? This is actually CSV file. How come Power BI assigned the table icon next to that? The reason is, irrespective of the type of the file that you load it in your Power BI desktop, Power BI considers everything as a table. Okay, it is something like irrespective of the religion or the country you belong to. Once you settle down in India, you're all Indians. Okay, it is something like that. Okay, it considers all the files, including the tables, Oracle tables, SQL Server tables. It considers everything as a Power BI tables. Okay, good. So now you can see the table name and then the columns for this table. And if you go to the data view, if you switch to the data view, you can see the data here. So I can see the data here for this table. Okay, with this, you can By scrolling towards the right side slowly, you can check what are the columns that are required for creating your report or available in this file. You can make sure that, okay, and then you can scroll down and you can see, okay, I have category column, is there product ID, everything is there, very good. What are the columns that I needed, everything is available. And at the left bottom you can see the number of records that are available in this file, sales W0. How many number of records? 25,000. 4 rows are available. Fine. And also it shows the distinct values. And what is this distinct values? Currently, look here, I just sorry, I just selected category. In the category, how many unique values are there? So you have more records are there. If you click on it here, 3 dots, 3 plus blank value, 3 plus 1, 4 values are, that is what it says, 4 distinct values are. Ideally, the blank value should not be there. There are some data related issues. We need to fix it. That we will see it later. Okay. Fine. Now you understood with this simple demo how to load a CSV file and how to view the CSV files columns and how to view the data. So currently we are in this data view. Can you all see it? Right. So this is what your data view. Currently we are in this data view. And if you want to see what data type each column is or any specific column, for example, if I click on the city column and you can see it here, sorry. If you click on any space, in this case, I clicked on city column. You can see the name of the column, city, and the data type is text for this. Okay, that's all. You can see the data type for each column by clicking on the column name. And once you click on the column name and just above this in the menu, you can see the column name along with the data type. For example, in the case of numeric column, when you click on it, here in this menu, you can see the column name quantity. Okay, and is this a whole number or decimal number? Quantities in general, it is a whole number. The format is also whole number. You can click on the drop down. You can change the format also. If you want this quantity to be a decimal number, you can change it. Okay, and you have some other formatting type, right? If you want, you can change the. If you want to have something like a decimal value, so a decimal value by 1. If you want to change the format, you can do it. Okay. And the default one is 0. Since it is integer, we don't need any decimal point here. And next one is summarization, sum, and data category is uncategorized. This is not a categorical column, and this is a numeric column. I will explain categorical column later. Okay, don't worry. And sum, by default in Power BI, for any numeric column, it assigns the sigma notation. If you switch over to, currently we are in which mode? This mode, the report canvas mode. You can see the sigma notation along with all the numeric column. This itself clearly indicates that, hey, these columns are numeric column. Maybe these are decimal number or it's a whole number. Whole number is an integer. But end of the day, these are all numeric column. Along the numeric column, you can find the sigma notation. Now the question is, what does this sigma notation represents? The sigma notation, what it tells us, for example, you are creating a chart or visual. In Power BI, we call visual instead of calling it as a chart. Okay. For example, I am going to click on this clustered column chart. Okay, when you click on it, automatically it will get dropped here. Okay. The next step is I will just select some quantity column and I drop it into this visual, and category column, I'll just drop it here. You can see that in the x-axis, the category column got dropped here. The text column got dropped here. And then in the y-axis, this is your y-axis, right? This is sum of quantity. Numeric column got plotted here. In this case, if you could have noticed it clearly, what I did, I simply selected the category column, I dropped it here. The quantity column, I simply selected and dropped it here, but there's sum of quantity. In each category, how much quantity we sold in total, that is what it shows. By default, in all the visuals, for the numeric values, it will show the summary values. Okay, that's why we can see the sum of quantity here. Okay, See, once, for example, see, currently I just click on it here, the empty space. And then if I click on the visual, what is happening? The visual got selected. You can see this thing, right? This one and this one. With this, you can understand that this visual got selected. Along with that, you can see this one, the x-axis. For this visual, we have something called x-axis and y-axis. In the x-axis, we have plotted the category. In the y-axis, I have plotted the quantity. But all I did was just I dropped the quantity. Since in Power BI, for any numeric column, it applies some function, okay, not the average function. If you want the average to be applied, average function to be applied in the quantity, you can specify it explicitly. But the default aggregation function is sum. For example, if I click on this column here itself, I can see the data type for the column whole number, and the summarization is sum function. By default, the sum function is applied to my numeric column. And if you want to change it, you can go to the drop down, like you can change to this is all the aggregation function. You can do average, minimum, maximum, count, sum. So, okay, fine. How will you understand whether Power BI Desktop applies sum on the quantity column? So all you need to do is when you drag and drop the numeric column, not only quantity, even profit, it by default, it applies the sum on this column, entire column, by the category. So for example, you drop a segment column here, the sum of quantity by segment, it will show you. Country, if you drag and drop it, the sum of quantity or units sold by country, it will show you. In India, how many units we sold, USA, how many units we sold, that is what it will show. But, right, so this one, to understand the application of this one, right, the sigma notation, which means the sum of quantity, only when you drag and drop it into a visual, you will get to know that it applies the sum automatically on this numeric column. In this case, the numeric column is quantity. Fine. So this is enough, okay, at this moment. Now you understood how you can find out the data type for each column. It is pretty simple. Along with the numeric column, you will find the sigma notation. With that itself, we can understand, hey, this is a numeric column, this is a numeric column. But unfortunately, next to the sales column, we don't see the sigma notation. So now you are curious to know, if you click on the sales column, on top, you can see there's a text data type. Power BI, what happens is when you load the data into the Power BI desktop, it assigns the data type for each column automatically. But in this case, for the sales column, it should have assigned the data type as a decimal number. Instead, it assigned the text data type. Why? You need to do further investigation. There is something wrong. Hence, Power BI Desktop assigned the wrong data type to the sales column. So what is the big deal? If it assigns the text, let it be there. But you cannot do any arithmetic operation. It's something like Kamal and Murali. If I add Kamal and Murali, do you think it is an arithmetic operation? No, right? Murali is a text plus Kamal is a text. How can you add these two, right? You cannot do. Hence, it is mandatory that you need to convert this column as a decimal number data type. You can do that by clicking on the drop down here itself, and you can select the decimal number or fixed decimal number. But this is not the right way of converting the these type of columns, right, upfront from text to numeric column. Before you convert that to the desired data type, you need to go and check why the sales column got assigned with text. Currently, I'm in data view. I selected the sales column. Next to that, you can see the 3 dots. This is called ellipses. If you click on it, you can see all the data here. Let us see, or if we can make out with this gist of data, whether why Power BI Desktop assign the text data type. But if you see that, good that in the first value itself, we can make out along with the numeric value 2309, it put the dollar here. If you see any dollar or pound along with any decimal value or numeric column, right, numeric value, it is called Unicode character. Instead, if you see ABC, 2309, then that is called alphanumeric value. Why it is called alphanumeric? Alphabets in English, how many alphabets are there? A to Z, right? So the alphabet along with numeric value, that is called alphanumeric. In that case, you will see ABC 1, 2, 3. Okay. But in this case, the dollar is there. Dollar, this kind of a special character. In that case, this is called your unique character. Along with the numeric value, if you have dollar or something, that is called your Unicode character. So we need to fix this one. So only when how do we address this issue? We want to convert this value alone as a numeric value. And if you scroll down and see, none of the values were prefixed by dollar. Thank God. So you have only one value in this sales column combined with the dollar. Hence, Power BI assign the text data type to this entire column. You take any programming language along with the numeric value. Even if you put one single string or text value, it will assign the text data type to the entire or string data to the entire column, because text or string always takes higher precedence in any programming language. Okay, the same thing is applicable here. Just because I have one value combined with some dollar kind of thing, it assigns the entire column data type as a text data type. Now, what is the way out? What is the workaround? The only workaround is you need to remove the dollar, and then you need to change the data type. Probably you can go here and do it. But guys, remember that you don't do, it is always a best practice. Don't do any data transformation, changing the data type or removing the dollar, everything. It is not possible here, first of all. And don't do any data transformation, everything here. Okay. Best thing, you can go to the Power Query Editor. What is Power Query Editor? That is one of the components of Power BI. So look here, this is what, this is your one component. What is this component name? Model view. I just keep the cursor on top of this model view. And if I keep the cursor on top of this icon, that is called your report view. Instead of saying keeping the cursor on top, I'm going to use some fancy word, hover, H-O-V-E-R. Okay. Just hover the cursor on top of this. It will display something I report with. If I hover the cursor, you can see the data view. And if you hover the cursor here, it shows the name of this icon, model view, the purpose of this model. This is where you can see the model. You can ignore this one. I will explain it later. Okay. This is what your data is. If you want to switch over from one view to another view, you need to use this icon. If you want to go to the data, if you want to see the data, you can come here. If you want to switch to the report view, click on this icon. Now you can see the visualization, your report canvas. This is where we can create all the reports. Anyhow, the data type, everything we'll see it later. The Power Query Editor also will explain it later. This is a very simple example. Okay, we will proceed with another simple example. Okay, now you understood with this example how to load a CSV file. What is CSV file? Once again, okay, somebody is asking what is CSV file. CSV files stands for comma separated value file. Comma separated values. For example, you have something like employee ID and employee name that is there in a file. In a notepad, you can open this file, but your employee ID is 1023 and e name is Ashok, and like this, right? The data is there. How do you distinguish which column starts where, which column starts where, right? So if you put comma here, comma is a delimiter. That means once the Power BI desktop reads this until comma, it can understand anything after comma is a next column. Anything after comma, oh, this is a next column value. So the using the comma, it can distinguish one column from another column. Okay. And the comma is called your delimiter. It is also called as a delimiter or separator. Delimiter or separator. Delimiter or separator. Okay. So this is what, so here, most of the enterprise still I could see that they store the data in CSV files. For example, your file name is sales, week 4 sales dot CSV. The extension is CSV, dot CSV, CSV. This is what I'm talking about. CSV file, the sales W04, this file extension is CSV, not TXT, not XLS file, right? So So if you have XLS, that means the extension of this file is XLS, then it means Excel file. If it is .csv, it is called a CSV file. The abbreviation for this is comma separated values. CSV stands for comma separated values. Remember that. And the status call, they'll ask you, okay, you have comma separated values. Well, there are some cases what will happen is to distinguish from one column to another column and its values. There are some cases they use a delimiter comma. There are some cases they use the pipe symbol. This is called your pipe symbol. Wherever the pipe starts, that means the next column and the next column value starts. Okay. Though they CSC, this is called a CSV file. Inside you can see pipe symbols, but majority of the cases they use the comma delimiter to distinguish one column to another column and its values. Hope you understood what is CSV file. This is the commonly used popular data file. It has structured data. CSV files are your structured data. The next one is Excel file. How to load the Excel file into Power BI Desktop. You can click on the get data. You can select this connector, Excel workbook connector, or here itself it is available, because these source files, right? The Excel workbook is most commonly used, popular one. Instead of going here and clicking on it, you can click on it here itself. And then look here, I have something called dim customer.xls. I'm going to select that one. I got loaded. See, in this case, a .xls, it's a older version of the Excel file. In your case, while loading the older version of the XLS file, don't worry, it will throw an error. Okay, so it will throw an error, hence don't worry. So in that case, how do I open the .xls file? What you do is you go to your operating system. In the operating system, what you do is you go to your file, wherever the file you store it here. For example, what is the file name? Dim customer. That is what I loaded, isn't it? You open this file, .xls file. Okay, you open it and save it as .xlsx file. Click on the file menu. Click on the file menu and save as browse. And here you can change it as .xlsx. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, you change it to dot and click on save. It'll get saved as a .xlsx and then you open it. This is the workaround for this one. So don't panic if the .xls files, you cannot load it here. When you load it, if you get any error, don't worry. Open the XLS file and save it as a .xlsx file. And then you load it here. In my case, the XLS itself is working. And this Excel file, I have only one sheet is there. And if I select this sheet by clicking on it here, it'll give you the preview of this customer dimension tables data here. So in practice, we use this naming standard. Instead of saying, see, in practice, how we call this one as a customer dimension table. Okay, but we use this naming standard, dim customer. This is the one most widely used naming standard. You need to follow the naming. You cannot give whatever the name you wanted to the file. Make sure that you are giving the proper name for the table. This one is, they would have, your employer in your project team, right? They would have already documented it. What name you need to give it to the table, what name you need to use it for the column. All the things, they would have mentioned the coding standard document. Once you get into a project, you ask your manager or team leader, hey, can I take a look at the coding standard document? Fine. So now in this Excel file, we have only one sheet is there. You can see all the data here. And here there are some issues there. When you preview it, you can see the column names are available along with the data, right? Along with the data row, you can see the column name here. Ideally, the customer ID is supposed to be here. The first name is supposed to be here and last name is supposed to be here, gender is supposed to be here. It requires some kind of reformatting. Any of it is okay as long as the data is available. Correct, all the data are available. I'm okay with it. I will load it, but I will deal with this issue. I will promote this first row as a column header. That I will show you a little later. I'm going to hit the load button. It will load my customer dimension table, Excel data into this one. Where can I see that? Whether the file got a look here. Since I have loaded the sheet 1 as part of the customer dimension, dim customer XLS file, it gives me the name as a sheet 1. I'm going to rename it this one as a dim customer because I want to follow some proper naming standard. Fine. Dim customer. I want to see the columns. Click on this icon. It will get expanded. It shows column 1, column 2, column. But whereas when you click on the icon here next to the CSW04, you can see the meaningful name for the column, but whereas it is not meaningful. How do I address this? Okay, table name is there, 4 columns are there, but we don't know what each column is about. And if you go to the data view, and if you select the customer dimension table, you can see the data along with the table, column name. But unfortunately, this column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4 is not the right way of giving the column name. But Power BI, when I loaded the data, it automatically, assign this column name for each column. Okay. How do I address this? This seems to be something, vague, right? So what I do is I'll just go to the home ribbon. Remember that currently I'm in data view. I'm viewing the data and then I clicked on the home ribbon. And here, there is something called transform data. When you click on the drop down, you will find the transform data. Click on it. It will open up the Power Query editor. In this Power Query editor, we want to see the customer dimension. Look here, these two tables, whatever we have seen it in our Power BI desktop here, right? All these things, you can see it here also. Okay, fine. I'm going to select the customer dimension because here only the column names were not correctly assigned. So how do I move the first row to this column header? This is what your Power Query did. This is what I referred as a kitchen. This is where we do the data cleaning, formatting, shaping, everything. I'm going to select the transform ribbon. And then let me do one thing. Okay, it is still, loading the data here. Let us wait for some time. What I do is in the transform ribbon, currently I selected the transform ribbon. You can see a lot of options here. Just beneath this transform, you can find some use first row as it is. If you click on the drop down here, use first row as header, there are two options are available. Use first rows as headers. In that case, what will happen is the first row will get, this entire first row will get pushed here. Okay. So that the customer ID will appear here, first name will appear, last name and gender will appear here. Okay. And here I will click on the drop down. Use first row as headers. You click on it. The entire first row got promoted as a column header. Very good. Fine. And sales W04, and here we can see that. So now we have addressed this issue. It's a simple formatting problem. So once you are done with this, click on the file menu and close and apply. Now we don't need any longer the Power Query editor. Power Query is kind of a kitchen. Remember that, okay? But don't tell Power Query it is a kitchen in the interview. Just for your understanding, I'm telling you, okay? The Power Query editor is meant for performing the data transformation, data pre-processing, data cleaning, everything can do it there. Why can't we do it here? Because it is very flexible. Which one? The Power Query. If you do something wrong and if you want to undo that, that is possible. Something like in Notepad. Look here in the Notepad, if I type something like 10 and 20 and 30, okay, and then what I do is I just rewrite it as a 25. Okay, I changed 20 to 25. Now I want the previous value. What is the previous value of this one? Okay, what was the previous value? 20, right? I changed to 25. Later on, I realized, no, man, I want the previous value back. But I don't remember it. What was the previous value? I want to see the previous value. Control Z, if you press it, you can get the previous value. When you press Control Z, it it is undoing it was undoing the action which you carried out, the recent action, right? Control Z is available here to undo that. But if you do anything, the data, for example, if you delete a column, you will be losing this column permanently. If you later on you realize, no, man, I mistakenly deleted the column first name. I want the column back. Is there any way I can use Control Z or Control Z? That is not available in the data view. But whereas in the case of Power Query Editor, you can you can undo the changes whatever you made it. Okay, that is the advantage of Power Query Editor. I'll just show you with an example. I'm going to click on the transform data. Currently we are in Power Query Editor. For example, in the case of sales W04, I don't need this column row.id because in my report I'm not going to use this column at all. Why should I have it here? Unnecessarily consuming storage space in my memory or so. Right click on it, select this column, right click on it, remove this column, and then I don't need an order ID. I remove it. Okay, and later on I realized, man, I made a mistake of removing the order ID. I want that column back, and including the row.id, I need those two columns back. Mistakenly I deleted it, man. Can I use Control Z? Control Z or Control Z will not work in your Power Query Editor. Instead, you can see something like this. Whatever the action I carried, what action I carried, first I removed the row.id column, and then I removed the row.id column. Whatever the actions that I carried out, it get captured just beneath the applied steps pane. Removed columns. Next to this action or step, there is a cross mark here. If I click on it, that step will get undone. Okay, so now I got back my row.id order ID. It's something similar to your Control Z. You cannot use Control Z directly here. Instead, you need to click on the step which you carried out recently or in the previous steps. Next to that, each step, you will find the cross mark. If you click on this, it will be undone. Okay, fine. Now that is the advantage of one of the advantages of Power Query. But whereas if you delete a column here in the data view, that is possible. You can delete, right click on it, and then you can delete. You can delete the column. Once you delete, you cannot get it back. You cannot do undo. Okay, undo is not possible here, whereas in Power Query, undo is possible. And apart from, there are various features available in Power Query using which you can do the full-fledged data transformation, data cleaning, everything. So with these two examples, you have understood how to load a comma separate value file, how to load the Excel file. Fine. So this is my customer dimension. Yes, we did this. Next one is